In this lesson, we'll build a small antenna for the top of our pod. So let's use some primitives to begin building this antenna. So let's go ahead and drop in a cylinder. Okay, we'll kind of leave it here in the center as we build this, and then we'll move it into position. So I'm just going to move it up along the Y. And let's go ahead and change some of the attributes of our cylinder. So let's go ahead and dial the radius down a little bit. All right. And let's make sure that we give it some divisions. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the lines here. And I'm going to go ahead and take our rotation segments all the way down to 12. You can go even lower if you wanted to. And I'm going to go ahead and change our height segments. And I'm just going to give it 2 height segments. Okay. And let's also go ahead and look at caps. And let's change our cap segment to 2. All right, and we can go ahead and also turn on fillet, but I want to take the radius way down, and let's take our segments way down as well. So something like this for our first cylinder. Okay. Now we're going to need another cylinder shortly, so instead of going in and creating a new one and kind of matching this up, let's go ahead and just duplicate this for now. Okay, and then we'll turn this one off. Now for this cylinder, we want to go ahead and I want to make this editable. And I want to do a few things here. So I want to come in and let's go ahead and go to a point tool. Let's go to a rectangle selection, select all the points in the center and move them up kind of right about here. And then I want to go ahead and select the polygons at the bottom. Okay. Now you can see one thing I want to show you is you can see I dragged sort of halfway up these polygons and it didn't select them. That's because we don't have this tolerant selection on. If I turn that on, any polygon that I cross over is going to be selected. So depending on how you like to select things, in this case it works better to have that off because I can just select the bottom really easily and then I can go ahead and delete that. Okay, let's go ahead and select all of these polygons now. And in this case we'll go ahead and select across those. We'll do an extrude and pull those out. Let's go ahead and just add maybe one subdivision here. All right, I can go back in and optimize to get rid of any stray points that I might have. And actually in this case, I believe I can go ahead and get rid of these polygons at the top as well. Okay, and then again we'll optimize. Let's deselect those. There we go. All right, so now we have our cylinder, kind of our vertical cylinder. I want to add a little bit more resolution in here, so grab the knife and just drop a couple of more lines in there. All right, now for this cylinder, let's go ahead and turn it back on. And let's change some things about this cylinder. So I want to go ahead and change the orientation. So I'm going to change that to a positive X. And let me change that to positive Z because I want it to go in this direction. Let's move it up. Okay, and now let's change the radius. So we'll increase the radius here. All right, let's go ahead and change the height. Let's actually take this height down a bit. Okay, under the caps, we can go ahead and leave the caps. I'm going to turn off fillet though. All right, so we get just something like this, which is fine. I'm going to go ahead and go back to object. I just want to add one more segment. All right, and I think that is pretty good as far as the radius goes. Maybe increase it a little bit. Let's go ahead and now make that editable. Now I want to extrude off the ends on the inside here, so we'll go to live selection and select the polygons on the ends. Just like that. Let's go ahead and extrude that out, and we'll extrude it out a bit and then extrude it out a little bit more and then delete those polygons. Go back to our point tool and let's go ahead and optimize that. Now if I want to, I can come in here and select these points. And I want to actually scale this down a little bit. And we can actually flatten these out as well, I guess. So we'll go ahead and take these, scale them down a little bit. I just want to flatten the whole thing a bit. Now we need the actual antenna pieces coming along, and so we'll use splines for that. Let's go ahead and let's grab a rectangle. Okay, I want to orient this differently, so I'm going to take the rectangle. Right now it's using the XY plane. I want to use the YZ plane. So ZY. Let's go ahead and move it up and over here. Let's change some of the values. So go ahead and shrink this down a little bit by changing the height and width. Okay, so something like that. All right, and kind of move it into a little bit more of a position that we want. Okay, now let's go ahead and I want to go ahead and make this editable, and then I want to take the points, these 2 points, and let's go ahead and change that to a soft interpolation. Okay, we'll then scale this down a little bit and move it in. Okay, and you can play with these handles to get the exact look that you want. Okay, but I think something like that will work. Now let's add an extrude NURBS to that spline. We want it to extend back in this direction, X or heading. So in the heading, we'll go ahead and add a value, and we'll take this value out here. Okay, let's go ahead and increase that value a bit. We can take that spline, and if you don't see the, oops, there we go. We were in point mode here, so we'll go ahead and pull this back. So it ends up being something like that. We can put it into position there. And if you want to, you can come in on the extrude NURBS, go to the caps, change those to fillet caps, and then just take that value way down. And then you can maybe increase that a little bit just to give it a little bit more softness. Okay, so you get something like that. And if we want to create another one over here on this side, one of the really quick ways to do that is just to use a symmetry generator, and we can just drop our extrude NURBS under the symmetry and change our axis, and you can see we've got one over there, even though we only really have one. All right, then we can go ahead and take our objects, all 3 of these objects, right click, and we can say group. Creates a null above our objects, which we can name. And then we can move our object up into position, and if we need to, we can do some scaling on it. Maybe scale it down a bit and modify any of the individual pieces that we might need to. Okay, so in the next lesson, let's go ahead and use a cloner object to add some slats here for this vent in the back. So we'll go ahead and do that next.